New York City, September 14th. A silver pen is spinning across the mahogany table, and my life is spinning with it. My name is Irene Caldwell. Across the glass-walled boardroom, the three people supposed to love me most, my father, mother, and brother, are waiting for me to pick it up. They aren't asking for an autograph. They are asking me to sign a false confession that will send me to prison to save the family business. My father just told me I'm a liability he needs to erase. But he forgot who built his servers. He thinks I'm trapped in here with him. He's wrong. He's trapped in here with me. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We always appreciate the time you spent here with us. The glass walls of the executive conference room at Caldwell & Sons Wealth Management usually make me feel proud. They offer a panoramic view of the city skyline, a visual reminder of everything my family has built and everything I help protect as a senior cybersecurity analyst. But today the glass feels less like a window and more like the walls of a fishbowl. I am sitting on one side of the mahogany table. On the other side sits the tribunal, my father Douglas Caldwell, the CEO, my mother Elaine, the COO, and my younger brother Noah, the firm's golden boy financial advisor. There is a single thick folder on the table between us. I was told this was a quick chat about quarterly goals. But looking at their faces, my father's jaw set like granite, my mother refusing to meet my eyes, and Noah picking at his cuticles with feigned disinterest, I know instantly that this is an ambush. Irene, my father begins, his voice devoid of the warmth he reserves for client dinners. We've had a flag from compliance, a suspicious data breach involving high net worth client records and falsified risk assessments. He doesn't wait for me to speak. He slides the folder across the polished wood. It hits the edge of my notebook with a heavy thud. The internal audit traces the breach to your credentials. I open the folder. My heart hammers against my ribs as I scan the printouts. Screenshots of transfer logs, compliance overrides, and a drafted statement already written for me admitting that I mishandled secure files and manipulated data to cover my tracks. My father continues, speaking, his voice a steady drone. He claims I sacrificed the firm's integrity for my personal crusades about cybersecurity, acting recklessly with sensitive data. But as I look at the logs, the accusation falls apart in my hands. The timestamps are wrong. The IP addresses used to access the secure vault originate from an executive workstation on the top floor, not my analyst terminal in the server room. And the method, it's sloppy. It's a brute force entry that bypassed protocols I wrote myself. I didn't do this. I know immediately who did. I look up at Noah. He finally meets my gaze, his expression a mix of arrogance and panic, like a child who broke a vase and is waiting for his parents to blame the cat. While my father outlines the severity of the situation, my mind violently rewinds through the last 10 years of my life. I think about the day I graduated from Stanford with my computer science degree. I had an offer from a cybersecurity startup in Palo Alto, stock options, a massive salary, a chance to build something new. My father had asked me to come home instead. He said the family business needed to modernize, that they needed someone they could trust. I took a 40% pay cut to work here, because I believed in that old-school American ideal: you work hard, you stay loyal, and your family has your back. I think about Noah's college years. I think about the nights I spent remotely accessing his laptop to fix his corrupted hard drive so he wouldn't lose his thesis. I remember the time I recovered a term paper he had plagiarized and rewrote it for him hours before the deadline so he wouldn't get expelled. I was always the fixer, the quiet, reliable daughter who stayed in the shadows so the golden boy could shine. I did it because I thought we were a team. You have two options, Irene, my father says, snapping me back to the cold room. He holds up two fingers. Option A, you sign this statement admitting full responsibility for the fraudulent compliance activity. You resign quietly, citing personal reasons. In return, the firm will not press charges. Noah's record remains spotless, and the regulatory audit is satisfied. He pauses, letting the silence suffocate me. Option B, we hand this evidence to the authorities. We accuse you of financial crimes and cyber abuse. You will rot in federal court for years, and you will never touch a computer in a professional capacity again. I look at my mother, pleading silently for her to intervene. She finally looks up, her face a mask of toxic gentleness. "Honey, please," she says softly, reaching out as if to touch my hand but stopping short. "It's just one mistake. Take the fall now, and the family stays intact. Noah can carry the legacy. You don't want to erase everything your father built, do you? I didn't do this." I say, my voice shaking but gaining strength. I point to the logs. "Look at the timestamps, Dad. Look at the IP address. That's Noah's terminal. He was trying to hide losses in the Sterling account, wasn't he? He messed up the compliance transfer and tried to backdate it. If you look at the..." "Enough." Noah snaps, sitting up straight. "God, you're so jealous. You've always tried to sabotage me when you don't get your way. You can't stand that I'm the advisor and you're just IT support." I stare at him, stunned. But it's my father who delivers the killing blow. Douglas stands up, placing his hands on the table and leaning over me. His shadow falls across the fake evidence. "You were never my legacy, Irene," he says, his voice drop dead cold. "You were my liability. If I have to erase someone to protect this family, it's going to be you." The words hit me, physically sticking in my chest like a knife. Erase me. He isn't just firing me. He is telling me that my entire existence, every sacrifice I made, every opportunity I gave up, was placeholders until he needed a scapegoat. I realize in that moment that I am not being cut out of the company. I am being cut out of the narrative. To save the son who bears his name, he is willing to destroy the daughter who saved his business. Douglas slides a heavy silver fountain pen across the table. It spins and comes to a stop right in front of me. "You have until tomorrow morning at 9 to sign this. After that, we go to the regulators." I look at the pen. I look at my mother's weak, averted eyes. I look at Noah's smug, relieved face. And finally, I look at my father. A strange, cold calm washes over the panic. He made a fatal miscalculation. He thinks he's cornered a helpless employee. He forgot that he's talking to the person who built his entire digital security infrastructure. I don't pick up the pen. I stand up, smoothing my skirt. "I'll see you at 9, I say. I turn and walk out of the glass room. My heart is in pieces, shattered on the boardroom floor, but my mind is starting to sharpen into a weapon. They think they've ambushed me. They think they've won. They have no idea what I can do when I have nothing left to lose. The silence of my apartment usually feels like freedom, a stark contrast to the suffocating expectations of my parents' gated estate. But tonight, as I lock the door behind me and slide down against the painted drywall, the silence feels heavy. It presses against my eardrums, amplifying the echo of my father's voice. Liability. The word bounces around the small living room, bouncing off the second-hand sofa and the stack of technical manuals on the floor. I wrap my arms around my knees, gasping for air, feeling the panic rising like floodwater. I stare across the room at the one thing on the wall that I truly own, my framed Stanford computer science degree. I remember the day I hung it there, thinking it was the beginning of my life. I didn't realize it was just another asset my father was waiting to liquidate. As the shock begins to bleed into a cold, dull ache, the memories start to strobe in my mind, a montage of moments I had suppressed, now illuminated by the harsh light of today's betrayal. I am 12 years old again, standing on our neighbor's porch. Noah has just put a baseball through their bay window. My father is gripping my shoulder, his fingers digging into my collarbone. "Noah is sensitive, Irene," he whispers. "He can't handle the trouble. Colleges love kids who learn humility. You'll tell them you did it." So I did. I took the grounding, the shame, and the lecture on carelessness while Noah ate ice cream in the kitchen. The memory shifts. I am 17. I have a debate championship in DC, the culmination of 3 years of work. My mother comes into my room the night before I'm supposed to leave. She isn't packing a bag for me. She's holding Noah's college application essay, which is a disaster of sentence fragments and entitlement. "We're not sending you to DC, honey," she says, smoothing my hair. "Your brother needs you." If he doesn't get into a good school, it reflects on the business. You'll stay home and fix this. That's what good sisters do. I stayed. I rewrote his entire future while mine gathered dust on a shelf. Then the final nail. The job offer from the startup in Silicon Valley. It was everything I wanted: innovation, respect, a salary that would have made me independent. My father sat me down in that same glass-walled conference room and told me that Noah was going to be the face of Caldwell and Sons, but he needed a backbone. "You'll support him," he had said. "You'll make sure the systems work so he can shine. You are the safety net." I thought being the safety net meant I was essential. I didn't realize that safety nets are designed to be stepped on. I wipe my face with the back of my hand. The tears are gone, replaced by a cold, vibrating anger. I pull myself up from the floor and sit at my desk. I open my personal laptop, not the company machine they confiscated, and pull up the mirror of the incident logs I instinctively synced to my private cloud before the meeting. I start tearing the evidence apart. It doesn't take long. My father and brother are arrogant, and arrogance makes you sloppy. I see the hash mismatches immediately. The login anomalies are glaring to anyone who actually knows how to read code. There are clear signs that someone spoofed my credentials using privileged internal access that only an executive would have. It was an inside job executed with the unique clumsiness of someone who knows finance but doesn't understand the digital footprints they leave behind. It was Noah, directed by Douglas. They didn't just frame me, they barely tried to hide it, assuming I would be too broken or too loyal to look this close. I pick up my phone and dial Lydia Morales. Lydia was my professor for a semester, a brilliant legal mind who left academia to run a nonprofit tech law clinic. She helps whistleblowers and low-income families scammed by predatory financial advisors. She answers on the second ring. I tell her everything: the ambush, the ultimatum, the fake logs. "Irene, listen to me," Lydia says, her voice hard and serious. "What your parents are doing isn't just a personal betrayal. If your dad is falsifying compliance data and hiding losses to protect Noah, he is putting real people at risk. We're talking about retirees, teachers, firefighters, people who trust that firm with their life savings. If the risk algorithms are rigged, their money is in danger. This isn't just about how they treat you. It's about what they're doing to everyone who trusted the Caldwell name." Her words reframe everything. My revenge isn't just about my hurt feelings anymore. It's about protecting the community my father is willing to burn to keep his son warm. We spend the next hour sketching out a plan. We need irrefutable digital evidence of systemic fraud, not just the setup against me. We need the real books. We decide on a dead man's switch, an automated data drop that will send everything to the regulators and the media if the firm tries to bury it. "Irene," Lydia warns me as we're about to hang up, "if you do this, you're burning every bridge with your family. There is no going back. You will be at war with them." I look at the blank screen where the confession document should be. "He already threatened to erase me," I say, my voice steady. "All I'm doing now is making sure the world knows what he erased me for." I hang up. I reach into my desk drawer and pull out a small encrypted USB drive. I plug it into my laptop and initialize a script I wrote years ago for penetration testing. It's unauthorized, it's aggressive, and once I activate it to copy the hidden logs from the Caldwell and Sons offsite backup server, it will be very illegal. I hover my finger over the enter key. I don't hesitate. I press down. The city sleeps, but I am wide awake, bathed in the harsh blue luminescence of my monitors. I have spent the last 6 hours tunneling through the back doors I built into Caldwell and Sons infrastructure years ago. Back doors I created for disaster recovery, never imagining the disaster would be my own family. I am moving through the mirrored servers and archived email stores that my father thinks are deleted. He doesn't understand that in the digital world, nothing is ever truly gone, it's just moved out of sight. As I open folder after folder, the nausea returns. It isn't just about the frame job anymore. I am looking at a graveyard of ethics. I find patterns that make my skin crawl: backdated trade approvals to cover massive losses in the Asian markets, phantom signatures on risk disclosures for clients who are clearly senile, and shell accounts used to push high-risk derivatives onto retired teachers while concealing the volatility. Each PDF I open feels like a physical blow. My father hasn't just sacrificed me. He has sacrificed the financial security of hundreds of ordinary families to keep his bonuses fat and his reputation polished. Then I find the smoking gun. It's buried in a mislabeled subfolder within Noah's user profile. I pull up a chat log between Douglas and Noah dated 3 days ago. Noah: the audit is flagging the Sterling account. We're short by 400K. Compliance won't sign off. Douglas: fix the numbers before the audit. Use the admin override if you have to. Just get it done. Noah: I don't have admin clearance. Douglas: use your sister's. She keeps her credentials on the shared drive for maintenance. Do it tonight. There it is, in black and white. My brother didn't just panic and let me take the fall. He was instructed to steal my identity to commit fraud. He actively helped construct the lie that would erase me. I stare at the screen waiting for the tears, but they don't come. The grief has burned away, leaving only a cold, hard purpose. I start coding. I am not just gathering evidence, I am building a weapon. I design a script, a digital dead man's switch. It automatically compiles every incriminating file: the chat logs, the backdated trades, the spoofed IP records, into heavy encrypted packets. I program the destination paths: the Securities and Exchange Commission, the State Attorney General, a hungry investigative journalist at the Hartford Times, and Lydia's nonprofit. But I need a trigger. It can't be remote. They'll claim I hacked them from the outside. It has to be internal. I set the script to execute only when a specific user account mine signs into the executive conference room terminal and runs a seemingly harmless command: the compliance reconciliation tool. It's a standard program we use to merge files. To them, it will look like I'm doing exactly what they asked. In reality, it will be the match that lights the fuse. With the trap set, I have one last thing to do. I need to look them in the eye. I drive to my parents' estate that evening. I tell them I'm coming to talk things through before the deadline. The house smells of expensive roast beef and old polish. We sit in the formal dining room, the silence punctuated only by the scrape of silver against china. My mother looks pale, drinking her wine too quickly. Noah won't look at me. He's scrolling on his phone under the table. I'm glad you came to your senses, Irene, my father says, cutting a piece of meat with surgical precision. He launches into a lecture about family loyalty, about how the Caldwell name is a fortress we must all protect. He talks about legacy as if it's a religion. I put my fork down. At what point did I stop being part of that name, Dad? I ask quietly. He stops chewing. He looks at me, his eyes devoid of affection, analyzing me like a balance sheet that won't reconcile. You were born smart, Irene, he says. The compliment lands like a slap. That was supposed to be useful, but you have to understand something about this world. When you stopped being useful, you stopped being family. The room goes dead silent. Elaine stares into her wine glass, her knuckles white, but she says nothing. Noah smirks, a quick, involuntary twitch of relief that he is the golden child, and I am the refuse. That sentence is the final key. It unlocks the last chain holding me to them. I realize there is nothing to salvage here. No apology, no confession, no team player act will ever make me truly part of this family. They don't want reconciliation. They want a scapegoat. I finish my dinner in silence, a ghost haunting her own wake. I leave without hugging anyone. In the driveway under the cover of darkness, I call Lydia one last time. It's ready, I tell her. I'm going in tomorrow at 9. Are you sure? She asks. Once you do this, you're untouchable to them, but you're also alone. I've been alone in that house my whole life, I reply. I just didn't realize it until tonight. The next morning, the air is crisp and cold. I walk into the lobby of Caldwell & Sons. The receptionist doesn't smile. The junior analysts whisper as I pass their cubicles. They think they are watching a woman walking to her execution. I clutch my bag, feeling the weight of the laptop inside. I push open the glass doors of the conference room. Douglas is already there, sitting at the head of the table. The confession document is loaded on the big screen, a towering wall of text demanding my surrender. He looks at his watch. Right on time, he says. I pull out the chair, the same one I sat in yesterday, and look at the keyboard sitting on the polished mahogany. It's the trigger. I know that once I type the command, the secrets my parents built their lives on will explode out into the world. Dad taps the table where he wants me to sit. I sit down, fold my hands, and think, you're about to see what happens when the liability you tried to erase decides to write her own ending. Douglas taps the document on the table, the sound sharp and final in the acoustic stillness of the conference room. The draft I saw yesterday has been replaced by a thick, stapled packet of official HR and legal stationery. It is a confession, comprehensive and damning, formatted to look like a voluntary admission of guilt. I've made this easy for you, Irene, he says, his voice smooth, betraying none of the venom he spat at me over dinner last night. This is mercy. If you sign this, you leave with your dignity. If you don't, I will make sure no firm in this country will ever hire you again. I will personally call every reference you think you have and tell them exactly what kind of liability you are. Take the hit. Sacrifice yourself for the family one last time. I look at the paper. It's a suicide note for my career. Beside me, Noah is trying to look solemn, but his leg is bouncing under the table, a nervous tick of adrenaline. He thinks he's about to get away with it. I understand, I say, keeping my voice low and submissive. But if I'm going to sign this, the details need to be accurate. If the confession doesn't match the event logs, the auditors will know it's fake. I need to check the timestamps one last time. Douglas sighs an exasperated puff of air. He checks his watch again. He is so arrogant, so convinced of his absolute power over me that he doesn't even suspect I could be a threat. Fine, he snaps. 5 minutes, then you sign. I stand up and move to the console that controls the room's massive display screen. I sit down and log in. My fingers hover over the keys. I can feel my pulse in my throat, a frantic bird trapping itself against my skin. I open the command terminal. I type in the path for the compliance reconciliation tool. It looks like a boring standard maintenance script. To Douglas, it looks like work. To the system, it is an execution order. I hit enter. On the large screen behind me, a progress bar flashes green for a fraction of a second, then vanishes. The script has executed. The packets are flying through the fiber optic cables, leaving the building, spreading out to servers in Washington, D.C., New York, and the inbox of every major regulator in the industry. For 10 seconds, nothing happens. The room is silent. Douglas picks up his pen, ready to hand it to me. Then the vibration starts. First, it's Douglas's phone buzzing angrily against the mahogany table. He glances at it, frowns, and ignores it. Then Elaine's phone in her purse starts to hum. Then Noah's. Suddenly, the conference room feels like it's vibrating. What is that? Noah asks, pulling his phone out. His face goes slack. Before anyone can answer, the big screen behind me flickers. The confession document minimizes, replaced forcibly by a new window. It's an email alert, bold and red, SEC receipt confirmation, urgent file upload. What did you do? Douglas stands up his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. Another notification pops up. Urgent Caldwell and Sons document leak. Request for comment, Hartford Times Investigative Unit. Then the floodgates open. The script forces a compiled report onto the main display titled, Caldwell and Sons Pattern of Fraudulent Conduct. Internal Evidence. The room freezes. We all watch as the screen begins to auto-scroll through the data I harvested. It is a parade of sins. Backdated trades highlighted in yellow. Client signatures that were digitally copy-pasted onto high-risk disclosures. Then come the emails. The chat log between Douglas and Noah is blown up to 4 feet tall. Douglas, fix the numbers, use your sister's credentials. Noah, I don't have admin clearance. Turn it off, Douglas screams. He lunges for the keyboard, shoving me aside. He hammers on the escape key, but the system locks him out. My script has seized the admin privileges. He is powerless in his own boardroom. The door bursts open. It's not security. It's the senior partner. Mr. Henderson, followed by the head of compliance. They are staring at their phones, looking pale. They look up at the screen, then at Douglas. "We just got an auto email from the Morales Legal Clinic," Henderson says, his voice trembling with rage. "It went to the entire board, and the SEC. Douglas, what is this?" "She hacked us," Noah yells, pointing a shaking finger at me. "Irene hacked the system. She's fabricating it." "It's not a fabrication, Noah," I say, my voice cutting through the chaos. I point to the screen where the IP logs are now displaying. Those are the raw server logs. They show your device dad's authorization codes and the fact that I was in a dentist appointment when the breach happened. It's all there, every keystroke. Mr. Henderson walks over to the screen, reading the chat logs. He turns to Douglas, his face twisting in disgust. "You gambled with people's lives. My parents have accounts here, Douglas. You didn't just sacrifice your daughter. You sacrificed everyone who ever trusted this firm." Douglas is red-faced, sputtering, trying to regain control, but the momentum is gone. The phones are still ringing. Security guards appear in the doorway, but they aren't looking at me. They are looking at the CEO. I step back from the table. I am done. The trap has sprung and the lion is caught. As the lawyers begin to shout and the reality of the federal investigation sinks in, Douglas turns to me. He looks smaller than I have ever seen him. The granite jaw is slack. The power is gone. "Look what you've done to this family," he snarls, his voice wet with desperation. "You destroyed us." I look him dead in the eye, shaking but steady, feeling the weight of 20 years lift off my shoulders. "You destroyed us years ago, Dad," I reply. "You just finally got caught. You wanted to erase me to save your name. I chose to erase your lies instead." I turn my back on him. I walk past the stunned partners, past my mother, who is weeping silently into her hands, and past Noah, who is staring at the floor. I push open the glass doors and step out of the fishbowl. I am unemployed. I am disowned. I am about to be infamous. But as I walk down the hallway for the first time in my life, I am not a tool. I am someone who chose. My office in Seattle is nothing like the cold, sterile glass cage of Caldwell and Sons. It is a converted loft in Pioneer Square, smelling faintly of rain and roasted coffee, with exposed brick walls and windows that actually open. I run a boutique cybersecurity consultancy now. We don't chase Fortune 500 contracts or help hedge funds hide their assets. We work with community banks, credit unions, and nonprofits, the kinds of organizations my father used to sneer at, the ones that actually hold the community together. I help them harden their systems against the kind of predators I was raised by. It has been 3 years since I walked out of that conference room. In the immediate aftermath, the explosion was deafening. The Hartford Times ran the series for weeks. The SEC investigation was swift and brutal, fueled by the gigabytes of undeniable proof I had delivered. I didn't have to testify much. The logs spoke for themselves. I keep tabs on them, though less frequently now. It's hard to avoid the news when a dynasty collapses. Douglas Caldwell pled guilty to 3 counts of securities fraud and falsifying regulatory filings to avoid a public trial that would have humiliated him further. He is currently serving a 7-year sentence in a federal facility in Pennsylvania. The last photo I saw of him, he looked gray and shrunken, a man whose entire identity was built on a name that is now mud. Elaine fared little better. The estate was seized to pay the fines and the clawback lawsuits from defrauded clients. She lives in a 2-bedroom condo in a suburb nobody visits, cut off from the country club circle that constituted her entire social existence. As for Noah, the golden boy is tarnished beyond repair. He was permanently barred from the securities industry by FINRA. Last I heard, he was bouncing between entry-level sales jobs, blaming cancel culture, and his vindictive sister for the fact that he isn't a CEO. For the first year, I lived on a diet of grim satisfaction. I would wake up, remember where my father was, and feel a jolt of dark triumph. I had won. I had erased the man who tried to erase me. But eventually, that sharp, jagged edge of vengeance began to dull. It didn't disappear, it just transmuted into something quieter. Clarity. I realized that keeping them in my head, even as enemies, was still a form of attachment. I didn't want to be the woman who destroyed the Caldwells. I just wanted to be Irene. The test of that resolve came yesterday. I was sitting at my desk preparing a lesson plan for the evening. I volunteer twice a week with Lydia's nonprofit, which has expanded to the West Coast. We teach young women from underrepresented backgrounds how to code, how to perform penetration testing, and most importantly, how to recognize financial and professional abuse. My phone buzzed on the desk, a voicemail. I didn't recognize the number, so I played it. Irene. The voice was shaky, wet with tears or gin, I couldn't tell. It was my mother. It's Mom. I know you're busy. I saw a picture of you online. You look good. A pause heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. Noah is in trouble again. Family should help family Irene. Please call me back. We can put this behind us. You're still my daughter. I sat there listening to the static at the end of the recording. The old instincts flared up, the desperate child inside me, wanting to fix it, to save them, to finally be the good sister and earn the praise I never got. It would be so easy to write a check. It would be so easy to call her back and let her pull me back into the web. But then I looked up. Through the glass partition of my office, I saw my students arriving for the workshop. 5 teenage girls, loud and brilliant, and terrified of the world, carrying laptops covered in stickers. They were looking for someone to show them that they had power. I thought about what my parents taught me about love. They taught me that love was a transaction. They taught me that loyalty meant letting someone cannibalize your future to feed their ego. I am teaching these girls the opposite. I am teaching them that their skills belong to them. I looked at the phone. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel the need to call her and scream about what they did to me. I just felt a profound, calm detachment. No, I whispered to the empty room. I don't owe you my life anymore. I pressed delete. The message vanished. I didn't block the number. I didn't need to. It simply didn't matter. I grabbed my jacket and walked out to the main floor to greet the students. We spent 2 hours tracing packet data and laughing about bad encryptions. When I left work, the rain had stopped and the sun was setting over Elliott Bay, turning the water a brilliant, burning gold. I walked down to the waterfront, breathing in the salt air. I thought about the ultimatum in the boardroom. My father tried to threaten me into silence. He tried to force me to take the fall. He told me I was a liability he needed to erase to protect his story. But in trying to erase me, he forced me to pick up the pen. I watch a ferry boat cutting through the dark water, moving steadily toward a new shore. My parents spent 20 years trying to mold me into a prop for their play. I thought revenge would fix the hole they left in me. It didn't. What fixed it was this simple, undeniable fact: I walked away, and I never went back. They lost a daughter. I gained a life. And with that final choice, Irene Caldwell proved that even when your family tries to erase you, you have the power to write your own ending. What did you think of Irene's ultimate confrontation in the Caldwell boardroom? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one of your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story of digital revenge, please subscribe. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Revenge Hour. We'll see you next time.